we're now getting into the areas where this trail's a little bit more challenging. Whoa, look at that view. Holy crap. Awesome. Wow, that looks like a fire over there. That's definitely a fire. I think it might be time to turn on the rear-facing camera. I'd really like to replace that camera with something with a front view screen on it so that when I take that camera on and off the bike, I can get it set right back to a good viewing angle. It's a GoPro Hero Session 5. I really like the compactness and the lightweight of it. I've used it on my helmet for quite a few years. But the audio is absolutely horrid as far as trying to do moto vlogging type stuff, because you don't have the ability to hook an external mic to that. So it's really only good as a B-roll camera. Criminy. So I've demoted it to B-roll duties. Okay, that splits again. This goes up to the site of an old fire lookout. That continues on down to where ultimately I want to go. So we're going to go up to where this old fire lookout was at. Probably 12 to 15 years ago, a section of this trail that climbs up the peak got rebuilt and rerouted. I'll try to point out where the old trail went. So I know that I went up that old trail twice. Once would have been the summer of 2003, and then once was a few years before that when the dualsport ride came out here. The reason I remember the second time on the original trail being 2003 is I had a Desert Fox toy hauler, and I remember that trip over here I still had my Chevy K1500 truck, which was kind of outmatched for that toy hauler. It towed it okay, but the next year or that fall I upgraded to a 2500 HD with a 6-liter engine in it. This trail, as you can see, it's littered with sharp, jaggedy, broken rock. And as this trail starts to dry out, it can be a real bear climbing the last little segment to the mountaintop where the old fire lookout was. And I just caught up to that other bike again. Actually, there's a couple of people up there. Looks like a bunch of rocks embedded in the trail that they're having trouble getting over, or at least the last guy. I think I might just walk up there and scope that out. So the original trail basically shot directly up the hill, but I don't remember exactly where it took off from and started. This can be a pain in the butt to get up to. It's actually gotten a lot worse than when I have been up here before. Figured I'd scope this out first. You want to stay to the left and shoot up that big rock slab. Once you're past that, you should be home free of that mess. I'm somewhat... Nope, I'm not even gonna say it. Just gotta go. Ugh. Wow, the mosquitoes are bad up here. You wouldn't think up on top of a mountain where there's hasn't been snow for a long time that you wouldn't have a big swarm of mosquitoes, but that is just totally wrong. They are everywhere. That's yet another good reason, I suppose, why it's not a bad idea to wear a jacket. Keeps the mosquitoes from biting through your jersey. So I haven't yet seen the old trail, but I know it was a straight shot, and I remember it being brutally nasty to get up. Not that this was any cakewalk. This is a lot worse than I've ever seen it. So I bet that this was it right here. So it's one of those small world stories. A gentleman up there at the top, he was on a beta. I've ridden with him before. He remembered me. He said, "Hey, aren't you the LED guy?" And I said, "Yeah." So back in 2018, I came over to a rally, a four-wheel drive rally, and didn't have a four-wheel drive vehicle. I just wanted to attend the rally for the sake of attending the rally, and I brought my DRZ 400, and in some sort of an online chat group, I posted some information that I was going to be over the area and wouldn't mind meeting up with somebody to go for a ride. So that's what we did, is we coordinated through that discussion group, and he met up with me one morning, and we did some of these same trails, and he remembered me from then. So that's been 6 years ago, I guess, and I remembered him too, and I specifically was thinking about that ride when I was out here earlier today, heading up these trails. And I said, "Oh yeah, you were on a DR350, and he still has that bike." And that's what I had before my DRZ 400. So another treacherous trip that I had up here, I having a little bit of a brain fade, trying to remember when it was. But for a number of years, I used to come over here with a small group of friends. Jeff was one of the guys' names. I've mentioned him earlier in this trail riding story saga. Him and I, he had two other riding buddies that also rode DRZs. Sometimes some of us would get together and do a fall ride, like mid-September. I know that I did that 2, maybe 3 times. And one of those times, it was just 3 of us. Mosquitoes are in my mouth. We rode out this trail system, out past, I don't know, we may have went by the lakes where the trail was closed, continued on out past this, and then went down the same, no, we didn't go down the same trail that I'm going to go down today. We went down, toe-biting log there. We went down a trail that is at the far extreme end of this trail system that drops you down onto a paved road. That's the only time I have ever been on that trail, and it was very unmaintained, and it has seen very, very little use back in that era. I think that it was probably 2008. So there was all kinds of log step downs from the early days of trail building, where I guess they were put in to prevent erosion. Well, partway through the morning when we were up high, it started to rain. And by the time we got down to the trailhead, we were kind of wet. It didn't rain on us a lot, but it was enough to soak the brush along the trail because it was kind of overgrown. And then we got a little wet. So we went down into a little community where there's a store, had lunch, took a break, and then had the other part of our loop planned where we were going to come up the trail that I'm going down today. Well, to get to that trail, you run up the paved road a ways and then take a fork onto a Forest Service road, run up that a ways, and then take you take that Forest Service road, and it pretty much ends at a trailhead. So as we were heading up the pavement, the weather was looking kind of nasty, like it was going to rain more. And then we get up to the dirt road, and it's like, oof, that's looking kind of nasty too. Well, foolish us. I was kind of the trail guide. I should have known better than to keep going on that trip. We should have bailed out and turned around and went back and just taken the main Forest Service road back up over the ridge instead of doing the trail. So by the time we hit the trail, it had kind of started to rain. And then back at that last trail junction where I just turned left to head this direction, when we got to that trail junction going the opposite direction I'm going right now, it was pretty much a full-on rain/snowstorm. And that was the first significant or first precipitation this area had seen all summer for the most part. So the ground was like moon dust powder. It's kind of hard to talk and concentrate on trail riding at the same time. So the water was running down off of the hillside, down onto the trail, and then a trough of water running down the middle of the trail. And the rain was coming down enough where it wasn't really absorbing into the ground whatsoever. So we were riding along and we were stirring up the little water trough in the middle, but we were also kicking up dust. So as we were riding along, our tires were going through the water, but we were also making a little bit of dust and exposing the dry ground underneath the little troughs of water. It got super cold. I stopped at least once and took my boots off, took my socks off, wrung the water out of my socks, dumped the water out of my boots. Because when you're riding in crap like that, your thighs are getting soaked, your calves are getting soaked, and the water is just running down off of your thigh, down your knee, onto your calf, and into your boot. So we were so stinking cold. Jeff stopped once and might have done something with his boots, and he put his hands on his exhaust to warm up his hands. Needless to say, we did not ride the next day. I think we came over here Thursday after work. That was a ride that we did on Saturday, and then Sunday we didn't ride. We were just too exhausted. Our gear was still wet. The only one of the saving graces is that we were camped at a state park campground that had power and water hookup, so we were able to run some little electric space heaters in our RV to sort of dry out our gear and warm up, plus the fact that there were showers at the state park. We could take a extra long shower. So a longtime friend that used to lay out the dualsport event over in this area, he stopped by our camp because he used to run over to the state park and check on the water system. And we told him about the trail that we rode, and he was blown away that we rode it. He said that him and a friend of his rode, I don't remember if he said they went up or down that trail back in the 90s, I think he said it was, and they were on some crazy epic trail ride where they did all kinds of trail riding, and they were coming whichever direction, either up or down that trail, well after midnight, and the only light they had other than their headlights was the moonlight from the sky. So for the most part, riding here, I need to actually grab first gear. There we go. I was in second. I was going to say, for the most part, I can mainly manage in second gear. But the going got pretty rough there. This area burned probably about 30 years ago in a big forest fire. And it really got incinerated, so that the dirt kind of changes composition. And parts of it become more granular in nature, or granular in consistency. I'm really kind of surprised that there's not more tree growth back here than there is, since it's been 30 years ago that this burned. Extreme high elevation makes it hard for trees to grow, I suppose. We are not really sure what our elevation is here. My GPS is throwing an error, lost satellite reception. So this trail I believe I've only ridden it 4 or 5 times, and I can come up with an exact number by thinking through the years. So the first time I rode it was from the little store down below in the uphill direction during a dual sport event. Same dual sport event I mentioned earlier where we used to cover some of these trails. I thought my camera stopped recording. I